I want everyone to realize at this point we are indeed recording, so please be aware. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone has had a good start of the year. I know a lot is going on. I know that we are being really impacted, many of us, by COVID, so I hope all of your family and friends are well. I also want to start with a moment of silence as a former government and English teacher. Today is not a normal day. It is a year after the anniversary of the insurrection, and I just think that as an educational organization that we should not gloss over that, and we should just take a moment to acknowledge this moment in our history and all that it represents. Thank you. The agenda, which might be very fluid today as people join us, begins with the opening. Usually we have, oh gosh, I don't know why it still has October in there. One day I'm gonna get that right. We'll have the December meeting minutes by Laura Fuchs when she joins us. We'll have a financial update by our treasurer. Then we'll begin with the listening session from community members. We put some questions out there to guide the conversation. People are indeed not restricted to those questions, but we thought it was important to begin the year with listening and hearing what is on the minds and hearts of our community around educational issues and educational adjacent issues. So then we'll end the meeting with a presentation by My School DC. It is indeed school lottery time, and we want everyone to be well informed of that process. I will have an appeal for committee signups. We always hear from our State Board of Education rep, Eboni-Rose Thompson, Ward 7 representative announcements, and we plan to adjourn on time. Just looking to see if, okay, so we're going to continue on. And we'll come back to these two reports in a minute. Ashley Kearney is the Vice Chair of Ward 7 Ed Council. She's actually going to really do the moderation because unfortunately, as I started the meeting, my best friend since we were 5 years old, her mother is on a ventilator and she's been called to the hospital. So I need to step back and forth and check on her. So I did not want to be not fully present. I do want to acknowledge the candidates who came to this meeting. We appreciate your time and effort. And if you will come off in the order here and just say a sentence or two, just so people can put a face with the name, we greatly would appreciate it. So we'll start with Councilmember Robert Wright, candidate for Mayor of the District of Columbia.
Good evening. Very, very happy to be with you all today. I know most of you very well. I will only say that education is the most urgent issue in the city, and hearing from parents in addition to teachers is the most important thing we can do to do better for our children. So I look forward to hearing perspectives this evening. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Council Member. At this time, we're going to go to Brian Schwab. He is candidate for the district's Attorney General. Would you like to say a word or two?
Only to say hello, everybody. I'm Brian Schwab. It's nice to meet you virtually. Thank you for letting me sit in and listen today. I'm looking forward to listening and learning tonight. And I look forward to meeting you all in person, hopefully soon.
Thank you. Next, we have Laniqua Dominique Jenkins. She is a candidate for at-large council member. Would you like to say a word or two?
Absolutely. I was trying to navigate and make sure that my camera is on. Can everyone see me?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. So I'm really excited to be here. I look forward to listening and having a closer ear directly with parents as they drive the conversation about one of the most critical things that is going on in our public education system. So I'm here to maintain a teachable spirit and also to continue to create people-centered solutions.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Ambrose Lane, also candidate for at-large council member.
Thank you, Marla, and thank you all to the Ward 7 Education Council for having me. I'm excited to be here and to listen. I am a parent. My child goes to a DC public school. He's 7 years old. And I think that parental input and community input into our education system is absolutely more important, and we need to find more ways to get meaningful parental and community input into our education. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And last but not least, Dexter Williams, also candidate for at-large council member.
Thank you, Marla. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the invitation. It's really good to be here. I'm a resident of Ward 7. Actually, when I got involved in public service, I actually started out on the Hillcrest Education Committee, and so education is critically important to me. And so I'm looking forward to listening and learning and taking notes, and then following up with everyone to talk with you one-on-one. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I see that our treasurer has joined us. Mela, do you mind, before we move it into the listening session and Ashley takes over, would you give us a financial update?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be off camera for a slight second, but once I figure out my tech situation, I'll be on so everybody will be able to look at me. As I think I told folks last time, we were working on our bank account, so we had to get some financial documents filed with DCRA. And I've just been compiling the documents needed so that we can go ahead and get our bank account opened. So I think I just got the last piece. And hopefully we should be good to go. It's a little bit more difficult than normal because it's COVID, and the bank I was going to use eventually, they actually closed and I have to travel for the branch. So, but we're getting it together. So just bear with me a little bit. So
We appreciate all your efforts and we will get there. Okay, with that, I am going to turn it over to our vice chair, Ashley, who is going to moderate and invite people to share with the Ward 7 Education Council and the candidates what has been your experience, not only this year. We know the last few years have been unique, but what has been your experience either with your children or as a student or as a community member with education here in our ward and across the city if your children have had to leave the ward to go to school. So with that, I want to bring up Ashley, and it is yours. And I'm going to get off camera and I'm listening, but I'm also trying to support my friend. Okay, so thank you all.
Yeah, no, thank you, Marla. I appreciate that. And, happy to step up. Prayers to you and your friend and her family. Just want to thank everyone for attending, especially I know that given today, in light of what's going on, it could be challenging. So I thank you for being present and making time for this, especially to educators in the district who are going back and dealing with some somewhat difficult situations and stepping up to the challenge to do what we can for students and families. I definitely thank you as well. That said, I'm going to just pose a few questions And I'm not going to say, can we have a parent answer this, or can we have a student or teacher or whatever answer this? When you feel moved to speak, definitely speak on this particular questions that that resonate with you. I also know that I specifically invited a few folks to share. So definitely want your voice to be here. We have a lot of community member leaders and teacher leaders in the space. And so I welcome you to share. That said, I'm going to start with question 1. We're listening and giving grace, of course, and also just speak from your experience. Also want to name that this is not the only opportunity that you can share your thoughts. We have several meetings where folks have been present and we can share with those candidates who are interested, and also hold additional opportunities for you to communicate your education issues and or concerns and things that you desire for the district. Question 1, we really hope that you can describe and if you're a parent, your child's educational experience, whether it be in DC public schools or if it be in the DC charter school system. So can you just describe your experience in terms of education in the district?
Ashley, should they raise their hand so they can be called on? How should we do that? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, thank you. No, I don't want to, I feel like if you can just come off mute, state whether your position, if you are a teacher, parent, or student, that will be fine. I don't think people will be jumping all at once as they gather their thoughts. So hopefully we'll respect the person that unmutes first.
Yeah, we generally don't do raise a hand. So just
Yeah.
jump in. So people who may not know, do not be shy, just join in.
I just lowered my hand because I didn't want to be embarrassed because you all don't raise hands. And please help me navigate how I should do this, because I'm not just a candidate, I'm also a parent with a child in a DCPS school. And I do have opinions in terms of my experience as a parent as well. And so I don't want to take up time if there are others that want to share their experiences. So please let me know how.
I'm glad you raised that. It would be very helpful if you have your candidate hat on first as a listener. And then before I go to the next question, I definitely will come to you and see if you have things to add. And thank you for that. You can also be prepared to put responses in the chat for yourself if you feel like the time might be running on that question and you just want to get your answer in, that'll be fine. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I also will be putting the questions in the chat. And the first one is really just describing your educational experience in DCPS or DC charter school system. And I know that Mr. Spires not only was a student, but also is a teacher in DC public schools. So I'm actually going to have him share his experience as an educator in the school system.
I would love to share my experience as an educator. Yes, so I'm a product of DCPS high schools. I went to Dasa, and y'all probably can't see me. I'm sorry, I'm driving. I'm headed on to work number 2. But as an educator, I've discovered, and I was intentional about coming to Ward 7. I know that might sound crazy to some people, like, what? Yeah. I teach at Ron Brown College Preparatory High School. I'm the performance and music director there. I was intentional because of the impact that Ellington had on me while I was in DCPS. And though Ellington is nowhere near Ward 7, praise the Lord, the impact is something that I wanted to mirror in this particular part of the season, because as an educator, I've experienced in Ward 7 the most fighting as an educator than I've ever experienced. In the sense of I have to really love it. I have to really mean it. When I was doing substitute work at Ellington, of course I meant it from an artistic standpoint, but it's something different when you're fighting for the entire child, not just their artistic self, and certainly not just their academic self, but you're fighting for the entirety of the child. The whole child has become a buzzword at this point. but I've discovered, and I can certainly say that my educational experience in Ward 7 is on the front line. I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 2-month-old son, and yet they are not my only children. And I think that is the best description I can give of my education experience here in Ward 7, is that they are not my only children. And I certainly have over 200 Black young men. And if you can take that for what it is, that has to be my answer on that, Wise.
Thank you, Spires. And if you have specific questions that we want to align to that, I ask that you put it in the chat, and I'll make sure that we come to you for it. Want to make sure we get Manla on this question as well. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Hey, Ashley, thank you. This is like a little bit of a broad a broad question, but I think I want to answer it like in a couple of ways. So my experience has been kind of, I want to say, like two sides of a coin, I guess. My children, the experience that I've had with the teachers of my children have been like really caring, dedicated educators. Some who have been at the school for like more than 20 years and who really have stepped up and supported the children and the families when those children and the families needed it. So, you know, my experiences with teachers at Drew Elementary and then Payne Elementary, where my 13, 10, and 8-year-old both have attended since pre-K. Most of that time at Payne, but a little at Drew, were educators that, you know, took up the PTA and like took up parent engagement when there weren't parents to do it, advocated on behalf of the students. And then my experience on the other side has been sort of a opposite bag for the administration. So like my first real experience with, I guess what we would say is central office, but like DCPS administration in general, was a SIT team or school improvement team when we were supposed to get a renovation. And it was my first experience with this sort of familiar cycle of not good answers, not good responsiveness from the school district and from the entire system, where we were looking to get things done. We were trying to get our school renovated, and there was this runaround, unclear procedures, unclear process, complete removal of the money out of nowhere. This coming back to us with a totally different proposal than what we agreed to. And then that cycle continued to when our principal left, and we had a similar like OPEAK process about principal selection. And of course that has come to COVID, where who knows what's going on. And so it's kind of been two sides, right? It's been from the teacher side, from the parent side, you've seen this like, engagement and really dedication to the families and the work and our most needy students. And then from the administrative side, from central offices side, from the mayor's side, from the chancellor's side, it's this sort of like confusion, opaqueness, like do what we want to do, non-responsiveness. So I think that's the best way I can answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Manla. And then Alex, I know you wanted to share something on that question, and just so you don't feel bad, I'll say shit so that way everyone feels comfortable. I know you accidentally put that in the chat. It's okay. All right, so feel free.
Amazing. So I'm a new resident of Ward 7. That's a big thing I did last year. So I'm a community member. Made a few friends on the stoop. One thing I'll just say. A lot of the kids who live next to me and who live in the area who I've done some homework packets with with some things on the stoop. I work in Northwest. I'm an administrator at a charter elementary school out there. But yeah, so anyways, the kids around my way, when they're not in school, and I check in with them when I come park my car, they're like, "Hey teacher, hey Miss Faust." And if they're not in school, if they're quarantining, there's not really a lot of options for them to play outside or like places for them to gather. So that's something I worry about. And I appreciate the move that DCPS made when they let the families pick up from any school, like not just their immediate school. And I'll share just a quick anecdote about one of my former students who I stay in touch with, their family. I'm now like working as an advocate for them. They're in Ward 8. He's now at Kramer. But anyways, he called me Tuesday. They called me around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. He was like, "What are you doing, Miss Faust?" I was like, "I'm at work." And he was like, "Okay, we're trying to go pick up our tests. We're trying to go to Kramer, but it's really slippery." And I was like, "Well, I could definitely come pick you up, but it's going to be a while before I can get out there." And I was like, "But you can go up to Moton. You can just go right up to Moton." And they were like, "Oh, word, okay, we can go to Moton." So they went and got their test and negative, and they uploaded that. And so like I knew that because DCPS, like, y'all emailed it, y'all tweeted it, so like I was able to pass that on to my people like really easily, and they were able to get back to classes today, which is what it's all about.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any other folks who wanted to put a response on that question? I have several other questions, and I know that Ambrose, you wanted to respond. If I may ask you to put your response in the chat, if that's fine, just because I know your priority right now is your listening ear. And then I also see you, Ms. Johnson, have put your response in the chat as well. And thank you. I want to give at least about 5 to 10 seconds for everyone to take note of what was in the chat. If you are somewhere where you aren't able to see the chat, I do want to make sure that I read it aloud for you. Okay. I've gained so much real family as an educator in DCPS, Elliot Hine in 2010 to 2017, and then from Ryan Brown from 2017 to present, from students to their families, to the colleagues, to admin, and have lifelong relationships with former students that I value tremendously. I've also experienced gaslighting, undervaluing, verbal abuse, etc., from DCPS leadership, admin, and parents. I love my folks. I hate the system. Thank you for highlighting the work of the people, but also the damage that can exist from the stance of the system. Ms. Johnson, who is a teacher leader in this district and in this ward. All right. I'm going to move forward with the second question. Thank you, everyone who responded. If your thoughts are still there and you want to respond later, please feel free to do so. My next question is going to be, what concerns do you have that either DCPS or the DC Public Charter School Board is not currently adequately addressing? That could be anything from COVID to traffic safety to special education, et cetera. There are no limits on that. What concerns do you currently have that both sectors are not currently adequately addressing?
I can jump in right here, Mr. Spires. A concern that they are not adequately addressing is that if they're not careful, they're going to lose some very good teachers in Ward 7 and in Ward 8. They across the river, they're about to lose some really good teachers because they don't really understand the work that is being done in these wards. And they haven't made it a priority to come into the space and live in the space, not observe the space, not study the space, live in this space, breathe the space, smell the space, be there. And so as a result, certainly, and I'm sure someone else will share, it spills into so many other categories. COVID is just an example as a result, and the lack of protocols and the uncertainty of protocols. And of course, it's ever developing, so there's some grace there, but at the same time, there's some forethought that is absent.
You accidentally went on mute, Spires. Left off at forethought.
In this, oh, am I still here? I'm sorry.
Yes, we hear you now. You left off at
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Like I believe that's just an element of not living in the space. Like, live in our classrooms, live amongst our students, come be with the teachers, come not just talk to us and write on your notebooks and in your easel pads when you get there. Come actually live here a minute, spend some time, not, you know, strategizing how you're just going to renovate. How are you going to live here with us? How are you going to be in the trenches with us? So I do believe what is not being adequately addressed is the reality of a turnover rate and a shift that is about to happen as a result of not really living and loving the teachers that are in this ward. They're not addressing it, and yeah, I don't know if I can be any more clear without getting upset. But I truly believe that it's not adequately being addressed. That the place where the most work is being done, and I don't say that bias, place where the most work is being done, they are not they're not looking.
Thank you, Spires. Alex, if I'm correct, you came off mute to share.
Y'all want to know why I'm not teaching east of the river anymore?
Please do
Y'all
share.
want to know why I'm not teaching in DCPS anymore? It's not because I don't live over here. I do. It's not because I don't want to deal with Black kids or challenging kids or, you know, kids who don't come from a home that has everything they need. It's not none of that. It's because my principal wasn't present. It's because of impact, honestly, frankly. Like, I'm an excellent educator. Like, I give 110%. Like, it's that system that pushed me out. You know, I will find my way back. I can't promise you that it'll be DCPS side. And it's because my principal was not, like, the person who's in charge of building that community, which is why teachers stay, you know, like the administration is in charge of that. And if you have an accountability system that, you know, basically the pendulum has swung too far on the other side, I believe in accountability. I believe in data. But yeah, you. Mm-mm.
I wanted to make sure if you wanted to have other responses to that question as well. Alex, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your experience. I also put the question in the chat.
This is Mandela again. Ashley, I know you're moderating, and I know I'm also on the Ed Council board. So let me know when I'm talking too much. But you just asked such good questions. I just want to say something. So my major concern is that there's just a real lack of imagination around how we can create safe spaces for children and parents during, the pandemic. And I'll say that as a parent, some percentage of my day is just like getting by, right? Like doing whatever needs to be done so that I can continue my day on. But I'm always concerned, like, what's going to happen? Like, is my kid going to get COVID-19? Like, obviously, it's been reported and folks know that, like, we're not getting the updates on time. I mean, I've had, a conversation with my daughter's school principal where she was like, yeah, she's vaccinated. She can come back tomorrow. And I was like, no way, like, I'm going to get her tested. And that principal told me, privately, that she was happy that I said that and she would recommend that policy. And I guess, like, overall, I just feel like there's just not enough imagination and thoughts about how we could really get through this pandemic together. It's a very disheartening thing. And then to see, like, it now seeming like we're going to turn around and just say, like, oh, it's the teachers that are the problem, and try to just push the pandemic under the rug, under the idea that like maybe Omicron isn't as bad. It's just, it just strikes me as a lack of imagination. So I guess that's what I would say.
Thank you. I know I had a parent, I know I'm on the board. I'm not going to be sharing for all these questions, but you speaking as a parent just really highlighted the fact that I wish this parent was here. Last year, when we had virtual learning, there was a parent that was very fearful of sending her student to school to pick up the device. Not they were going to school, just to pick up the device because of the transportation issues from where he was, because we are sort of citywide, to come across to pick up his device for school. And instead, we had to figure out how to communicate to another school near him, like up the street from him, to be able to coordinate how he can get his work, et cetera. And even when he did get the device, it was difficult for him to navigate the device. And even his mom, she couldn't read, literally could not read. And so just being on the phone and having those extra conversations, I think people don't understand how much work goes into not just educating, but also after hours, what it's like to really support families and what we're prepared or not prepared to do as educators. And that said, it took us communicating and literally having teachers like myself drive to the person's house and just trying to say, like, we know we got to keep a distance, but how can I be supportive? And those acknowledgements of the real situation on the ground that was happening wasn't what's being communicated, say, on Twitter, right? And communicating something a day in advance or on the same day doesn't allow for the turnaround time to really do what's necessary. And even outside of the system, some schools, that two-way communication piece at one point was overwhelming, but even that struck as people have matriculated back into the building. So I think focusing on not communication, but definitely true engagement and understanding the needs that each school has and how we can address them would be important. And I think that's an outstanding concern. I see that there are responses in the chat, so I do want us to have time to read those. Thank you, John Glover from Friendship, who has participated and put his response in the chat. For those of you who cannot see it, definitely will read it for you. I work at Friendship Public Charter School. One thing we'd like to see is more resources focused on housing for teachers so they can afford to live where they work and stay as part of the community. Ideally, this would be in the form of rent subsidies, but also programs that allow for teachers to own their own homes.
Don't accept what they give you because they're not.
Jennifer, did you mean to be off mute?
And Sandy, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm getting ready to mute.
Okay, thank you. And then also, Kayla, I see your response in the chat as well. Folks have time to read that one. The impact of teacher and leadership turnover on creating continuous programming, lack of monitoring of programs that have been initiated, and transparency on progress. So sort of this comprehensive approach consistently feels like we are starting over from scratch with initiatives that are not contextualized within long-term plans. Okay, maybe in succession planning. All right, thank you for sharing that. And then Devin Myers has also put a response in the chat. Thank you for sharing. We also need to reimagine how we teach, support, and advocate for children that require IEPs during this pandemic and beyond. This requires more resources to staff and more innovative curriculum. And also, can someone tell me if they cannot see the chat? That way I won't have to read all of those. I cannot read the chat.
Ashley, do you mind reading it? Because
I'll keep, okay, that's fine, Marla. I was like,
recorded and just because we know that everyone is not here and we want them to hear the comments.
Oh, okay, yes, absolutely. I forgot about that. I'm going to add the next piece, and I know you wanted to put your stuff, Ambrose. I still welcome you to put that in the chat. From your perspective, what are the benefits of educating your child in the district? Well, if you come from a different context, right, what are the benefits of students being educated in the district? And I'll add a second question to that. And I'm also going to put this one in the chat. In what scenarios has the school system met or exceeded your expectations for students? There are a lot of times where we can say all these things are wrong, but we also want to acknowledge what things do we want to keep going in or continue to advance. First question, from your perspective, what are the benefits of educating your child in the district or having a student being educated in the district? What scenarios has the school system met or exceeded expectations for students.
Hi, this is Nzinga. I'm going to come off just, I'm not, can't be on camera, but my niece and nephew they live in Penn Branch, but they started elementary school at West, Uptown, and now they're on the Hill at Watkins and Stewart Hobson. And one of the ways that I think the school system has really exceeded our expectations was in supporting them creatively. With the theater program at West was stellar, both in terms of the content and the way that the educators cultivated young people who have natural creative talent, performing talent, and also encourage kids who were struggling. And also the music program at Hobson. My nephew has been playing saxophone, and Mr. Simmons, who's the band director, has just really expanded his appreciation and his understanding of music, like music theory. And it's just really beautiful to see him blossom in terms of his own personality and his sense of self-confidence. I think that the arts in general, unfortunately, have gotten short shrift in so many of our schools over the past 15 years. And it's just remarkable to see that when there are educators and resources available in schools, just how powerful that can be, not just for children creatively, but for their holistic development.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharona Robinson. At first, I wasn't going to say anything, but this question has actually compelled me to. First and foremost, I'm a very proud DC Public Schools graduate, a proud Ballou Knight, and the daughter of a current Ballou teacher who actually is scheduled to retire at the end of the school year. What I will say is, and I'm also an East of the Rivertonian. So I've lived in Ward 7 and 8 all my life. I'm saying that because I truly believe in East of the River schools. And what do I mean when I say that? All four of my children have attended Ballou High School as well, with the last one scheduled to graduate in June. And I will just pull out Tatiana's experience really quickly as a 2019 graduate from Ballou High School. So during her experience there, she had the opportunity to visit over 40 colleges and universities, most of the time for free, and most of the time it was an overnight experience. She's currently a junior at the University of Miami. And for those of you who don't know, the University of Miami is $75,000 a year, and I have not had to pay one dime, nor does she have any student loans. Tatiana was the first student to serve 2 consecutive terms on the state board, and even the first Ballou student to serve. And again, saying that to say, DCPS has afforded her a variety of opportunities. She's attended classes at Howard University for free, participated in summer programs and things like that, where she's been to Brown University as well as the University of Michigan. And again, all free programs. And then the last thing.
Oh, Blue, I just have to say that. I'm sorry, I'm a University of Michigan person.
Yes, I know. I was waiting for it, Mama. But I said that to say that DCPS, while, and yes, I do work for DCPS, but right now I'm speaking for my parent hat. Things are not perfect, but I can say from the perspective of being a student more than 20 years ago at this point, I do feel like our children have access to a lot more. When I think about dual enrollment programs, and the thing is, it looks different. Like we hear a lot about CTE and other certification programs, those programs actually never left Ward 8. So while, there was a focus to close schools like Chamberlain and Armstrong and those, sort of trade schools, if you will, the focus sort of shifted. And I did hear someone earlier say something about like initiatives and things like that. Things do change. Sometimes they might change a little sooner than we like. But all in all, it definitely has been a wonderful experience. And I will say, I made the system work for us. At the end of the day, these resources are here. We do need to, hold the system accountable and ask for those things.
Thank you for sharing, Sharon. I also think that brings up a good point about our families and parents just being informed, which is one thing that I like is that parent university that DCPS has, but also making sure that even that's not just a uniform approach. There are some responses that were in the chat that I want to highlight. Stephanie said that her daughter's school has a dual language immersion program, and that's really the main thing that keeps her sending her child to that school, and that school is in Ward 7. And Mr. Glover says that DC is a national leader in providing free access to preschool age children. And that's huge. That's a huge deal with enormous benefits to students' long-term learning. We should be celebrating it every day. I went to Head Start, and that was my start.
Ashley, can I just say one thing?
Of course.
I think one of the things that we often hear from the Ward 7 Ed Council is there are a lot of great programs, but there's not necessarily the structures in place to ensure that if you start off with a dual language program in elementary school, that opportunity remains for middle school and high school. So it's haphazardly designed in that way. Or if you're in an art school, is it an opportunity for you to continue through that your entire K-12? And so one of the things we hear often is that the feeder patterns and the programs within schools are not necessarily consistent throughout a K-12, and people are kind of always trying to figure out where they can send their kid next to try and continue something that started off good but did not have the opportunity to continue to hold K-12. And I think we just need better coordination along that line. I also think, I'm going to put in a plug right now around Winston Education Campus. I mean, I think one of the things that I am deeply concerned about as a member of Penn Branch is that not only that we have, many people talk about racial diversity, but I want socioeconomic diversity in our schools. And I think Winston is an opportunity to bring socioeconomic diversity into a school with some fairly high income communities like Hillcrest and Penn Branch, but also with Randall Highlands Elementary School being a Title I school feeding into that. And I think we need to spend more time working on socioeconomic diversity. I think that's really important. I think it's really important that kids understand that people who look like them have many walks of life, many professions, many options, and they need to be able to see that. And that only happens through socioeconomic diversity.
Thank you for sharing that, Marlon. There are several other comments in the chat that speak to dual enrollment with universities, local universities. We also have folks who have uplifted social emotional learning, but also other teachers and principal people being the reason why they stay in the district and particularly at their schools. So thank you for saying those things and uplifting the feeder pattern situation as well. There are a couple more questions that I want to ask, and I know that we have additional piece to the meeting, and we want to respect the time of not only the candidates, but those of you who came to literally share your experiences that you have in the system to continue to make improvements for students in our district. I'm going to put the question.
Ashley, you're on mute. You muted yourself somehow.
I must have hit the space bar. All right, so how do you feel about the resources provided for or at your student school? And if you could ask district leaders especially those being present, you can ask district leaders for one thing to improve your school or the educational experience at your school. What would you request and why would you request that? Be very direct. How do you feel about the resources provided for at your school? You ask for something, what would you ask for?
Real quick, one system. When I say that, I mean one system that could house information as it relates to entities that students and families are connected to. So for example, Ashley, if you were one of my students, let's say you were chronically truant and you were displaying a variety of behaviors. If I was aware that you had a social worker, if I was aware that you had a probation officer. As a former attendance counselor, I used to have several situations where students would have multiple social workers or mentors, you know, or just the same services. And then there would be people who needed services and couldn't get them because, you know, they were provided to the people who already had them.
What this is going to mean for your relationship.
There are some responses coming in the chat. And Ms. Jenkins, I do know that you have your hand up. I mentioned to Ambrose too, that I want to make sure you have your listening hat on first. And I know you might want to ask specific questions or something. So I'm holding that time at the end if you want to like ask probably like a specific question or something that we asked, and also putting those questions in the chat. Did that kind of take care of your hand?
Yes, it did. I'm sorry. I misunderstood because you said candidate and yielded the time. So I'll just put my hand down. Thank you.
I got you. Okay, responses for this question. How do you feel about the resource provided at your school? And if you could ask the leaders for one thing. I know people have stuff to ask for, y'all, so I don't know. I'm gonna leave that question and I'm gonna pull up one other question, but thank you, Sharona, for sharing sort of like that one system approach. I know even as an educator, one thing that I hope for is just like, if a student goes through DCPS the entire time, no matter what school you come from, I just wonder why I had to always start over trying to get to know the student all over again. There's some things I want to not know ahead of time where I can genuinely build a relationship. And there are other things where I need to be prepared for that student so that I'm not starting at ground zero, so that it feels like their experience is a continuous process. And we're able to keep that relationship with the family so that it's trusted, well thought out, it's comprehensive. And we're really thinking about the pathway for that student during and after school with our system. So that said, the last question that I'll ask, and then I definitely want to, Marla, if it's okay, let me know on time. I want to make sure if there was a question in a person's response where a candidate wants to hear more on, that you can ask that person to elaborate on that question that we had. And the last one is, what does a quality education mean for you? What does a quality education mean for you and or your child?
I was about to call you by your nickname. I'm sorry. I ain't gonna do that.
Who, me?
Yes, I was about to call you by your nickname, Big
Go
Kurt.
ahead.
I actually wanted to answer the first question, the question before, and then this one.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
No problem. Oh, I'm just gonna say it. No politics in Ward 7 school. They don't help us. Like, we're doing really great work. And when politics start to seep through into the school, it literally cripples the work. It makes people afraid to do what they came to do. And I'm not speaking on my behalf. I'm trying to be nice. That there's some people that stop working and doing the work that they said they were going to do because politics start to get in their ear. And they would be more effective if there was no politics. Now, that might be a for them. they might need to figure that out with Jesus, to, get some balls. I'm sorry, I got to say it like that. But if there were no politics, we wouldn't have to push them, right? And be as aggressive, because we're doing work that we don't need their help shaping with politics. Politics is not helping shape the work that we're doing. It's hindering the work that we're doing. We just need their resources. Amen. That's for that.
Actually, can we ask a clarifying question? Because people label politics many things. I would like to know a little bit more specifically, what are you calling politics to make that more concrete for people? I think it's important if we can do that.
Absolutely. Let me try to give an example. Let's start with COVID-19. Ain't no way we should be in the building right now. With all the data and everything, understanding that there is many things at play as it pertains to some students are more effective virtual, some students are more effective in person. And yet the schools don't have the discernment to be able to determine which of their population should be present and who can't. That's not rocket. Because and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, we live in the school. We know which students actually will do great virtually. We know which ones should be including. We should be able to mitigate this situation. It shouldn't be just one thing fits everybody, and we're waiting for DCPS to save us if we're dying. We should have to write a report to say,
Tina, if you can mute, that would be awesome.
Our school, because we got 15 or 3 or what, it don't matter if it's 2. If the staff don't feel safe, we shouldn't have to write something up or wait for you to come save us because it benefits you. We shouldn't do that. That's what I mean by politics. The puppeteering, the pulling, the waiting, nobody coming to save us. We figured out when we got into the job, we didn't come for someone to save us. We came to do work. And so when we're waiting and on the edge of our seat for somebody to make a decision on our behalf and you not in the building, that ain't helpful. That don't work. When our principals don't feel the support from their upper leaders or whomever to say, I'm closing my school because I know what's best for my people, that's a problem. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's unconscionable. It's baffling that at the heart of humanity, we don't have the understanding of when to say enough is enough, when to cut off not good, when we don't recognize what's poison. And so when I say politics, that's exactly what I mean. I mean the politicking that happens to try to control, to try to mitigate, to try to create a system, I guess it goes back to that system, that doesn't work for everybody, especially the people that seem to be cared less about. That's almost as clear as I can get about that.
I think and I don't want to reiterate because you can speak perfectly well for yourself, but what I heard, and you can tell me if I was totally off base, was that you feel it's politics when we don't acknowledge the differences and the different needs, and when certain communities seem to always end up on the shorter end of the stick in the recognition of those differences and different needs. And that you feel that that kind of systemic disenfranchisement and the possible non-acknowledgement of it, and even sometimes the covering of it, is what you are describing as politics.
That's part one of it. Part two is when it cripples the people who know what to do and doing what they're supposed to do.
And then you're also saying that when people who are close to the ground and understand the conditions, when they're not empowered to make the best decisions and their voices are silenced and stifled, you also feel that that is a part of politics.
Absolutely. When they feel like they're going to get fired, that's politics.
Okay. So making it plain, if you speak out or if you speak differently than what other people, the party line is in a way, you feel like that is politics. Is that what you're saying?
That's
Okay.
absolutely politics.
Okay, that's clear to me. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for the clarifying questions and Mr. Spires being willing to elaborate. Uplifted in the chat is the need for principals to have better training and better support. Also uplifted in the chat is a prioritization on facilities. I know that Eboni-Rose has communicated that she's been on these school visits, and some of the spaces that she's seeing aren't safe, they aren't healthy for children. And we have world-class learning happening in some of the otherworldly spaces. So that's been uplifted. Quality education. I know that Terrence has uplifted that quality education means securing much needed peace to ensuring generational wealth. So just making sure that we can have certain outcomes through education. If I missed something, please let me know. Also lifted up, our choices are being made that aren't about what's best for the school community and for the educators. Particularly, this is for folks who are watching as well. Ineffective leadership also put in there, and instructional coaches. So just I know I don't know if you wanted to speak up on that, Ms. Johnson, but I know that there is a system in place for, say, training, but when folks are trained one way in terms of instructional coaching, and then you have a system where they don't have the resources to put that same training out there, as new instructional coaches come in, you just assume that that prior knowledge is staying in the system to be able to address the needs of our teachers in our buildings and also the students. There becomes a disconnect. I know we have other teacher leaders in this space as well who may be able to speak to that more broadly or specifically. Yeah.
And we're coming to it, and I do want to say, we've also heard in our conversations with community that community safety and community issues impact learning, and we need more equitable attention given to certain communities to address some of these issues. I also want to uplift the issue that someone put in the chat around teachers in housing and the ability to buy housing, not just rent. We talk a lot about affordable rental housing, but we also know that there is an incredible wealth gap in the district, and owning a home is the first way that you start to close that wealth gap. So we would like to see our teachers live in our community, not just live, but own homes in our community. So those are some of the things.
Marla. If we do have a few more minutes, I wanted to make sure I went back to the fact that there were questions asked and people have responded, but they may have wanted clarifying from particular participants before those who have shared may have to head out. So if you are a candidate, not that you're sharing on the question from your experience, but with the listening ear, want someone who's present from the community to elaborate on a particular question. Those questions are not only in the chat, I can rephrase them if you want, but we're gonna have a couple of minutes for you to ask that clarifying question.
Hi, so I actually had a question for Julian. In one of the initial questions, he stated that he wanted people to actually live and have a very close pulse to the academic experience and the instruction of educators in Ward 7. So I'm actually a preschool teacher at one of the language submersion schools full-time east of the river. So I have a knowing. I feel like I have a lot of emotional data and my lived experience that speaks to a lot of what he said, but I'm looking for more exact language to make sure that I can really echo and kind of center what he's saying.
Absolutely, certainly. So secondary school seems to be always left out when it comes to addressing what we need east of the river. It seems like we always hit the elementary schools. We frequently hit middle schools. But once we get to the high schools, we like, no, thank you. we don't want to go in there. We don't want to teach. We don't want to sit under a teacher in a classroom for more than 15 minutes unless we're observing the classroom. Come on now, that's a different environment. You know, the moment you pull out your clipboard, you in a different environment. Come on a random day or sit in there. I've had many opportunities just with the inner core department where James Martiano came in and just sat, and just was there. And he was able to address what we needed in accord just by sitting in the classroom, not observing, just being a part of the class, answering questions, listening to the students, laughing with the students. You know, that's what we need. We need, and before there's a policy made, before there's a decision made, before there's a question asked or a question answered, just come be in my class. Just come sit in on a random day. Don't make it known that you coming. Don't let the students know that you're coming. You're a student today. Just come and sit, or come and teach, or come and be in our circle. Come and be in an altercation. You know, we don't want you to get, beat up or nothing, but come and be in the process of what we go through instead of theorizing about it on the outside. Like, come be there, live there for a week. So that's what I'm speaking, certainly specifically to the secondary, because we don't see that. You know, even when I was here, and I'm a graduate DCPS high school, we didn't have central office coming through there to check in, be with us, except for if we were having a show. And then they were looking to see how we could perform for them 2 weeks later. No, come see me as a human, sit in my class. You know, come look at me, learn with me, understand me. You can't write me a policy that you don't even know how I receive it. So, and I know even for the students, they yearn for that. I brought my students to a PD for inner core, and it was gold. It was just absolutely gold. They led the PD for the teachers in inner core. That was before the pandemic. That's what they need. They want to see adults understanding them, not just talking about them and theorizing about them, about data that doesn't reflect them. It reflects their scores. It doesn't reflect their character. It doesn't reflect what they're feeling. It doesn't reflect that they got cussed out that morning when they came and got an F. You wouldn't know that because you weren't in the classroom to have the conversation. My mom cussed me out this morning. I'm just not feeling it. Come sit in the room with us. And we need that. And I'm certain elementary school needs it. I'm certain middle schools need it. I just see, because I'm working heavily in secondary, that there is a yearning for it that we just don't get it. We just don't get it.
Thank you for adding more. Oh, thank you for adding more context to that. That's been my observation as well. You know, just having that competency, you know, to navigate those experiences. And I think like what you said is absolutely spot on in terms of that methodology being applied across the board. And I think that obviously standardized testing doesn't reflect that. Showing up one time doesn't reflect that. Reading about it in a textbook, making inferences is nothing like, you know, being present, observing, processing, listening, and having a people-centered, a youth-centered perspective when creating legislation. So thank you.
I know. I want to hear you more. I just want to make sure I'm respecting it so it doesn't seem like it's catering to one side.
I'm just excited.
But I know
I'm
you're just
myself.
No, you're
just
fine.
affirming.
I just want to make sure you were just like summarizing what you heard. That's all. Just out of respect. I know that we are at time. If there was any other clarifying questions, I know that folks wanted to put their stuff in the chat. And if you're a candidate with two hats, I definitely opened up that opportunity to do that for you to be able to come back to more meetings. But also share your contact information so that folks who are here, if they want to reach out to you to share information or gather a meeting with you or invite you to their space, that's something that they can do. Marla, if you are available to share what the next part of the meeting is, and also to thank the candidates for coming out and listening and being a part of this space.
First of all, thank you, Ashley, for allowing me to be able to step back and forth to check on my friend. Candidates, thank you for coming to listen. I do also want to let you know that at many of our meetings, we try and have students and parents speak. We think it's important. So we invite you to come anytime to listen in on what we're thinking about and considering. We know that students have talked about issues of safety to and from school and the impact that has on them. So that's why I said not only do we want to talk about education itself, but education adjacent issues that make students feel comfortable from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep, so that they can be ready to learn and have not in a state of trauma where they can't even concentrate on learning. So that's what I want to say to that. I want to thank you all We appreciate you coming, and we're going to move to another part of the meeting, and we want to bring up my school DC. Hold on. And we appreciate all of to talk about the school lottery and that process. It's a very complicated process that parents have to navigate to figure this out. And it has major repercussions. So with that, I know that Amy Lerman is on the line, and you have the ability to share your presentation. And she is the executive director of My School DC.
Hi, everyone.
And I think before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the chairman of the DC Council is on the line. Thank you for stopping in to see us today. Okay, I'm going to stop share and you can share.
Okay.
So you should be able to have the ability to do so. Can you?
I'm checking right now. Hopefully y'all can see.
There it is. Good. Excellent.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I know that it's probably been a long day, particularly for those of you who are parents or especially educators in schools. And thanks for inviting me to share some information about My School DC. I know that we're a little short on time, so I'll move fairly quickly through my information, but then leave time at the end for questions. So My School DC is the common application for and public school information system for the lottery for all DC public schools and the majority of public charter schools that serve pre-K 3 through 12. This is the application that families must use if they want to be a new student at a school, and the application is online only. So it's required for new students. So any student who's in pre-K 3 or pre-K 4 at a public school, including your DCPS and boundary school. Anyone who wants to be a new student at a dual language strand of any DCPS and boundary school, regardless of grade level, in boundary elementary school, I should say. This applies to Cleveland, Marie Reed, and Tyler, so possibly not schools in Ward 7, but just helpful to know. Any DCPS out of boundary, citywide or selective school, and any public charter school. If you don't know what your in-boundary school is, we have a school finder on our website where you can search for it based on your address. You don't need to use the application system if you want to attend your in-boundary school in K through 12. If you are going to just continue on in your current feeder pattern, both DCPS feeder patterns and charter feeder patterns, or if you want to remain at your current school. And you can re-enroll at that school. So they offer the next grade level at your that you will be in the following year. So things to know about My School DC. My School DC is a random lottery. So there's no benefit of being the first person to submit your application. It's not first come, first serve. On the application, you're allowed to apply to up to 12 schools, and you'll be asked to prioritize those schools on the application. So of the schools that you apply to, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. At the end of the process, you can only be matched to a maximum of one school. So this prevents families from taking up spots at multiple schools when obviously they can only attend one. If you don't get into your top choice school or your second or your third choice, you will be on the wait list for those schools and can remain on the wait list throughout the spring, summer, fall. And so you can enroll at a school that may not be your first choice and wait to see later on if there is space available at a school you prefer more. So most important information is the deadline. So we are past these first couple of dates. We've had our education festival. The application opened in December. The first upcoming deadline is for high school. That's February 1st for grades 9 through 12. So anyone submitting an application for those grades, and then March 1st for pre-K 3 through 8. Anyone who submits the application by the deadline will be entered into the lottery. On April 1st, lottery results are available. And then any family that is matched, so receives an offer to be at a school on April 1st, has until May 2nd to turn in all of their enrollment paperwork and accept it. Our application is completely translated into Spanish and obviously available in English as well. And we have some guides that are available in Harvard, French, Vietnamese, and Chinese. The application works like many applications for children, and basically anything these days. You're going to need your child's information, so their name, their date of birth, their current school, the information if you're the guardian, your address, your contact information, and then the schools that you want to apply to and how you want to rank them. There's nothing out of the ordinary that you will need unless you're applying to a selective high school, and those schools often require essay questions or the email address of teachers that may be completing a recommendation. You can learn more about the requirements for selective high schools on the My School DC website. We have a whole page dedicated to applying to high school.
I'm trying to get rid of, so the mirror comes back up. I'm so sorry. Okay, oh, there. Why ranking matters. So ranking a school first doesn't mean that you have a better chance of getting into that school, and that two students who apply to a school are treated equally in the lottery, regardless of how they ranked that school. The random lottery number is what's going to determine who gets that spot. But it does indicate to us which school we should try and match you with first. It is important in that we will only waitlist you at schools that you ranked above where you were matched. So if I move on to the next page, here's an example of a potential lottery result. This family was matched to their second choice A-time. They were in boundary there. And you can see that we don't waitlist them or keep them on the wait list of the schools listed below. So 3, 4, 5, and 6. However, they are on the wait list for the first school that they ranked because they indicated that they prefer that school to the school where they were matched. So sort of the main takeaway from that, that we always advise parents or people who are going to be advising parents, is to not overthink it, to not strategize how you are ranking your schools. It should truly be an indication of which schools you prefer the most. Because if you put a school that's really easy to get into as your first choice, you may get matched there, but then you're not going to be eligible to be on the wait list or even be considered at any of those other schools. April 1st is when lottery results will become out. Any family that registered with an email address, which is like 98% of our families at this point, will receive their results by email. We also send the results by regular old mail. Usually there's a little bit of a delay on that, 3 to 5 days. And then any family who doesn't remember their username or password or doesn't receive the email for whatever reason can always contact the My School DC hotline, and we are able to give you your results over the phone. May 2nd is the enrollment deadline. So this is for families who are matched through the lottery. They have a month of April to basically consider their results and get all the information that they'll need in order to enroll. Some of that varies by school. Some of it is consistent across schools, proof of residency, up-to-date health forms, things like that. There are situations where a family is waitlisted at all of the schools where they have applied. And in that case, they have a couple of options. In in kindergarten through 12th grade, they always have the ability to attend their in-boundary school. After they receive their results, they can also add themselves to additional wait lists. And then throughout the spring and summer, we try to keep a list up to date on our website of schools that have short wait lists. So families have an indication of which schools, they have more, they'll be more likely to get a spot at. So just some helpful resources to be available that you should be aware of. We have a pretty robust website where you will find the actual application, but where we also have a profile for each school that participates in My School DC.
We have videos about the process. We list open house dates on our website for all the schools that are participating. You can filter those open houses by ward or by date, by grade band as well. We have information available in Spanish and English, and then additional informational pages in some of the other languages as well. Another really important resource is the My School DC hotline. It's open from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Most of our hotline team members have been there for many, many years now, are extremely knowledgeable, not just about My School DC, but about education in DC in general. And they are able to obviously answer questions about the process, provide families with information, but they also can complete the application for a family over the phone. So this is an online application only. It can be done on a computer, it can be done on a smartphone, but also you can do it over the phone by calling our hotline. If you know families are going to need that, that type of assistance, we recommend not waiting until deadline day to have them call the hotline, as it is one of our busiest call days. And we just want to make sure that we're able to support everyone before the deadline. Also available on our website, we have historical information or historical data about lottery results over the years. So you can look at a school and see how many seats they made available in last year's lottery, and actually for like the last 5 lotteries, or 6, 7, 8 lotteries, I think at this point. We also can let you know what the length of the wait list was on results day and how many waitlist offers were made throughout the spring and summer. This is for families, once they get the results, to sort of gauge likelihood of getting called off the wait list, something that parents are always asking for. We look forward to providing additional information actually this year, although it is not up on our website now. We'll also be releasing the amount of students that have been matched in each grade level by year, and also be breaking down that information by preference level. So a question that we get from families sometimes is, how many spaces are there available for families that don't have a sibling or aren't in boundary? And we'll be able to display that information for you this year. So in the upcoming months, we look forward to having that on our website. This is the contact info for My School DC. I already talked up our hotline. These are 2 of our fantastic hotline team members, Patricia and Antoinette. Some of you have probably spoken to them on the phone. Again, that's our phone number. We have an email address that we answer every day, and that's the web address as well. Okay, I've been talking a mile a minute. I'll pause now if anyone has questions. I know a lot of you are very familiar with the lottery process, and before I get to the questions, I just want to say thank you for all that you do in supporting our families through this. We would not be as successful as we were without our amazing partners, and especially Ward 7. You do an excellent job of supporting your community in this. So thank you in advance.
Thank you, Amy. We have some questions. I know I saw Ashley had one. I also saw Ambrose had one. So if you could ask your questions, it would be helpful.
The question I asked, you mentioned 98% of the family emails working in the system to date. And I'm curious to know if the 98% you're referring to are for like all families, for all students, or is that just 98% of the families who currently engage with the platform?
So what I meant by that is that 98% of our applicants have provided us with some form of email address that we can contact them through. So if they provide us with an email address in the system, we're able to send them notifications and their lottery results via email. That number has increased slowly over the years. I think when we first started out, only 90% of, for instance, the applicants provided us with an email address. Just
what percentage of students are compared to the percentage of students in the DC education system? Do you know the percentage of students who actually have applications come in through the platform versus like the number of students we serve?
So it varies by a given year. I know that about 75% of the students in the district in public schools are not attending their in-boundary school. So at some point we'll have had to have gone through the lottery because they're either attending a charter school or they're attending an out-of-boundary school. I don't know if that is exactly the question you're asking. Last year we had around 20,000 applications which was a decrease actually from previous years, and we attribute that probably to COVID. And so it'd be interesting to
Thank
see if
you.
those numbers go up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ambrose, I know you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Amy, for your presentation. My question is that if there's a child in first or second grade at an elementary school that goes to fifth grade, when should they be putting in their first, second, and third choices for middle school?
Okay, so if you're in first or second grade, you don't need to use this application for middle school. You would only need to use it when you are a fifth grader, or in some cases, there are some charter middle schools, for instance, that start at fifth grade. So you might be submitting that in the middle of your fourth grade year.
Okay, so you submitted in the last year of
that's
where
right.
the child
The
is.
year before
Okay.
you want to switch to a new
The
school.
year before you want to switch. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to reiterate the deadlines. Can you give those deadlines again and the hotline number? I think that is really important for people to call, know the deadlines, and then know who to call if they have questions.
Thank you, Marla. And one thing I will say about the deadlines, this is like a hard deadline. 11:59 p.m. on February 1st is the deadline. We've had to have some tough conversations with folks who submitted their application at 12:00.
Wait a minute, we're having some talking. If you could please mute, we appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Continue on and please.
No, just that it's not a soft deadline. It's a hard deadline.
Okay, and for those of you who are listening and can't see this, I want you to know that the hotline is 202-888-6336 to ask any questions. The deadline is February 1st for high school 9 to 12 and March 1st for pre-K through, what is that, 8th grade?
Yes.
Okay, so very important. That's the hotline again, is 202-888-6336 to ask questions. Any final comments? Or I did have a question because I got a little confused, and I think I know this pretty well. If you said something about if you don't get accepted into any school, is that literally possible? Because I've not heard of that.
Sure. I mean, yes, I would say that the vast majority, if you use up all 12 of your school choices, you are fairly likely to get a match, but you don't have to list 12 schools. So there are families that don't use up all their school choices because they're not interested in switching to 12 schools. There's only 1 or 2 that they're interested in going to. And so it is possible to not get matched anywhere. And even for families who use all 12 schools, if they apply to schools that are very high demand schools, and unfortunately they get a not great common lottery number, random lottery number, I should say, then, it does happen. And we, are here to support those families and talk to them about their options. And in a lot of cases, encourage them to apply to additional schools.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Okay, we want to thank you for coming. We always have my school DC at the first meeting of the year to make sure that parents are aware of these deadlines and and the process.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you very much for being such a great partner to us and for inviting me tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. With that, did Laura ever join our call? We're going to go to some other educational updates from our well, I want to say this. I'm going to make a pitch. We still want people to sign up for our various committees, budget and finance programs, communications and outreach, legislative, and membership. If you're interested in any of those committees, please put your name in the chat and the committee you're interested in, and we will get in contact with you. We are asking for everyone to get involved in a committee. And then we want to bring up our State Board of Education rep, Eboni-Rose Thompson, to provide us with educational updates and what is going on from her perspective.
Good evening. trying to organize my thoughts. A few updates. So we had our working session last night. You all know we meet on the first and the third Wednesday of every month. A couple things are true. So the first is we allowed some time for members to share what they have been hearing from schools around reopening. That varied. I'm sure if you are on any social media, you have seen a lot about reopening, from the challenges with the snow and the test pickup to people's varying opinion about if schools should be open in person or not. I am happy to share, our staff did a quick write-up of what was shared out. So I'm happy to send that, and that can be shared on our email list because I'm going to say that conversation maybe was about 30 minutes. We also, I think most people know, are considering updates to the STAR framework. We saw what the resolution looked like last night. For people who have been following that process and attended our public meeting before the winter break, I do want to make a couple updates that I was surprised to see as a member. So the first is a lot of the debate had been around if we would have the STAR framework as it exists, like actually the summative being the stars, removing a summative altogether, or moving to a dashboard. As of right now, the first recommendation, which is to remove the stars from the report card and not have a summative at all, is no longer in the resolution. It will be offered as an amendment to the resolution when we vote in 2 weeks. And there are also 4 other amendments. Some of them are still being uploaded, so I don't want to misspeak to anyone's amendment. I'm happy to put in the chat the link to all the documents and people can see for themselves. I do encourage feedback. I will say that as someone who gets a vote, I believe a dashboard is helpful. I think being able to speak to other indicators, not just seeing a star and that's it, is really important. I am also really concerned that we need to have a strong recommendation altogether. And so I'm concerned about just like the level of detail we go into with the recommendations. And I really would like to encourage the board just to take more time and be more thoughtful because we have we've gotten some really good feedback. We also have some really thoughtful board members who could probably engage a bit more in the process, especially given everything that's happening. This has not been at the top of everyone's to-do list. So as of right now, we are supposed to vote in 2 weeks. We will see what the final resolution says. If you do have feedback, I absolutely welcome and need it. Third thing, that's a board thing. It is also time, just like ANCs, we elect leadership every week. Every year. Oh God, not every week. We elect leadership every year. So we will vote on that. Just like ANCs, you all do not get a vote. We get a vote, and no one else gets a vote. So expect that we will have new leadership for the coming year. Thing 4. We have new members of Ward 7 with redistricting. We should absolutely thank Chairman Mendelson for being the person to introduce the, I guess, agreement that was worked out that would not have happened without the chairman. We added about, I think, close to 9,000 new residents. And I believe we added 4 schools. Those are Eastern Elliott Hine Minor and Center City Public Charter School, which is on East Capitol Street. So we do want to welcome our new neighbors. I am having, I guess if it wasn't COVID, we probably would have done something more fun, but I'm having at least a welcome Zoom next Monday. It'll be at 6:30 p.m. I asked that be shared. It's totally an open thing. It's not just for, electeds. We have invited the ANC commissioners that we are inheriting from Ward 6. We inherit 4 ANC commissioners. They stay in their seats through the end of the year. Those do not change. But as we have new members of Ward 7, we want to, engage them, know what they're thinking, feeling, and meet the current members we have of Ward 7. I think that's enough stuff as we kind of start off the year. Please let me know if there are, concerns, hopes, dreams you have for education in Ward 7. You are welcome to contact me. I will say email is always best because I do not have a good time to call me. I can make some up, but I'll be lying to you and I don't want to do that. So I will put my email in the chat. I will also, if you would like to be added to my email list, because I do send a monthly newsletter, please let me know. You can just email me and let me know that. And if you have events that could or should be shared out, let me know that as well, because I do my best to include anything that is youth related to continue to just, encourage people to support different events and have different opportunities. So that is my update for today. We are coming off of the holidays. So I hope everybody had a little bit of rest. And I'm happy to take any questions if people have them. I know we're at 8:06 and I try to.
I just have a quick question about what exactly you'll be voting on for like what changes. Sorry, just real quick, if you can.
No, thank you for asking. Most people probably are familiar with, they've seen, especially since we just had the My School DC presentation, they know that you all know we have school report cards. And the way, like the way we present that is through what we call the STAR framework. Literally, we score it, and there's an algorithm for that. And the score comes down to, is it a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5-star school? We do share other information on the school report cards. It's not like you just see a star and that's it. But some people do stop at the like the headline. They don't do the double click to see the other indicators. So as the State Board of Education, we do not have it in our purview to make that change. We are an advise and consent board. So our assessment and accountability committee, full transparency, I'm not on that committee. The assessment and accountability committee is making a recommendation to make changes to the framework. One of the things that we've, well, there's a lot of things, but one of the things we've consistently heard from Ward 7 residents in particular is just the heavy weight around test scores. So I personally would love to see some more thought and reimagining around like how we weight quality, how we talk about just like what we want to see schools doing, how we're supporting schools in particular. But right now, the recommendation first is largely a lot of the testimony we heard was about removing the stars from the report card. We heard some things around growth, but it would be for OSSE to revisit that. And I want to say we are up to 9 recommendations because 2 were removed. And then there are 5 amendments. I will flag that one of the amendments that is probably the most impactful as far as how students would experience schools is, I believe it's Representative O'Leary in Ward 4 made a suggestion to revisit which summative assessment, in this case, PARC, like, do we want a different test altogether? So that's an amendment. I have no idea how people are voting because we just learned that last night. But that is what's in front of the board. Whatever we vote on then goes to the Office of the State Superintendent for Education for them to consider. They can take it up or not. If they take it up, we would then hope to work with OSSE to come out with a new version of the school report card. Last thing I'll say about that, if you want an idea of what school reports look like without SARS, you can actually take a look at this year's report cards, because since we did not do testing, our school report cards this year don't have any summative ratings on them. So I hope that's the quick and dirty intro to school report cards and accountability. I'm also happy to talk with you on offline around what that is used for.
Ebony, don't forget to put the link to the amendments in the chat, please, so that people can review that at their own leisure and see what is being discussed. Okay, thank you for your report. At this time, we move to announcements. I know, I think I saw Terrence Davis. He wanted to let everyone know about the Family Success Centers. So if you're still here, Terrence, do you want to tell everyone what that is and what happens there?
Good evening, everyone. Terrence Davis, Center Manager of the Eboni-Rose, Minnesota Avenue Family Success Center. It's basically your home away from home. Family Success Center, the mayor has 10 of them. East River is in care of 2 of them, the Eboni-Rose, Minnesota, and Benton Terra is Benton Park. So we basically have Ward 7. And we're your home away from home. We're upstream prevention. We're trying to keep families together. We're keeping children out of the child and welfare system. We do that through a facet of ways. Whole family enrichment, field trips, summer camps, activities for the families. We have Motivational Monday, which is Mental Health Monday. We have therapists for mental health. We have art, yoga, social and emotional wellness. What am I missing? We do grocery giveaways every 3rd Saturday of the month from Ward Memorial Church, 241 42nd Street Northeast, from 8 to 11 a.m. We do pop-ups, provide PPEs. We do everything. Provide information, referrals. We try to be the one-stop shop. We try to cut out all the bouncing from agency to agency. We try to get whatever the family need, whether it's at the site or in their homes.
Right, and so they help connect and also provide direct services through kind of a navigation system. And
yes, ma'am.
So thank you. Is there a website that people can go to for more information?
I put my information in the chat. East River website is up where it's getting updated with the Family Success Center stuff and all that information provided on.
But your email is in the chat, so please,
yes, ma'am.
Please, everyone, consult the chat for more information. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for all this beautiful information. I love it.
Excellent. Are there other announcements that we want to make at this time?
Yes, I do have one, Marla. Thank you.
Okay.
On Monday at 12 noon, the Health Alliance Network will have its January meeting. And one of our guest speakers will be President Jackie Pogue Lyons, who is the president of the Washington Teachers Union. She'll be giving an update about COVID in the schools and students and teachers and how it's affecting how COVID is affecting schools, especially with the spike in the number of cases that have happened in the District of Columbia. So she'll be giving an update from the teacher's perspective in terms of how it's affecting our school system.
Thank you, Eboni-Rose, for that, the Health Alliance Network. So again, what time is that on Monday?
That is at 12 noon, and I had already put my contact information in the chat. So anyone that wants to find out or get the Zoom link can email me at my email address that's in the chat.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else with any announcements?
Hey, Marla, let me just uplift a couple of things that were in our newsletter in case people didn't see it. On January 20th, the chairman has made an announcement about a hearing on budgeting. There are 2 bills that are being discussed. One addresses actually changes to the budgeting format. The other is more direct and just indicates a proposal that any school budget for the next year will be no smaller than the current year. Again, that hearing is on the 20th, and I can put the sign up link in the chat. They are limiting live testimony to 50 people. I have no idea where they are at this point. This has already been announced, and it's a hot topic, but you can sign up at the very least to get on the wait list. And of course, you can always submit written testimony. So that's on the 20th, but the sign up has to be done by the 18th to be considered. And then on Saturday, January 22nd, the DC area Educators for Social Justice are holding the Black Lives Matter at School Curriculum Fair. It's a virtual fair. And it's for educators. The Black Lives Matter at School Week is the first week in February. And so for any educators who are looking for resources to support that effort, that would be a great opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you, Nzinga. Anyone else with announcements? Okay, we want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We will send out the recording of this, and we thank you. Please be safe. I think we're supposed to get some more snow tonight. Hopefully not. I have not looked out the window to see if any has started. I hope not. And everyone, we will see you next month. We always meet the first Thursday of every month. So we'll see you then at 6:30, and we'll be sending out information about what our agenda will be for that meeting shortly. So thank you. Have a good night, everyone.